visitors, welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Alexander Hetherington. We are honoured to acknowledge the presence of Director Air Force Health, Group Captain Andrew Ormsby, Director Defence Force Nursing, Lieutenant Colonel Jo-Anne Eichen, and all nursing officers of the Australian Defence Force. We are honoured to acknowledge representatives of the Australian College of Nurses who are also joining us this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From Victoria, Ashwood High School. From Tasmania, the Friends School, North Hobart. And from Western Australia, St Mark's Anglican Community School, Hillary's. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Boys and girls, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Josephine Graham of Moyhu, Victoria. She trained to be a nurse at Beechworth Hospital and passed her final examinations in March 1936. Ennis was living in Chestnut, Victoria when she enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 20th of August 1940 as part of the Australian Army Nursing Service. She was attached to the 10th Australian General Hospital and in February 1941 embarked for service in Singapore. Sent with her unit to Malaya, Ennis was variously detached for duty between the 10th AGH, the 2nd 9th Field Ambulance and the 2nd 4th Casualty Clearing Station, treating the ill and wounded across the peninsula. Ennis was working at the 2nd 4th Casualty Clearing Station when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in February 1942. As the enemy forces advanced along the peninsula, the nurses were forced to withdraw to Singapore and rejoin the 13th AGH, the only Australian hospital left in Malaya. Once the fall of Singapore became inevitable, most Australian personnel were evacuated from the island, but nurses of the 13th AGH remained until the 12th of February, when they too were evacuated. Sister Caroline Ennis was one of 65 Australian nurses who left Singapore aboard the Vidya Brook, but 2 days later, the ship was bombed by the Japanese. As the bombs exploded, the nurses prepared for an evacuation, rushing to treat the wounded as best they could before abandoning ship with the rest. Some were helped into lifeboats, others clung to rafts. Those who could swim made for the nearby Banker Island. Sister Ennis and Sister Betty Jeffrey each grabbed a child and ran for the ship's bridge, only to find it ablaze. They left the children with an Englishwoman and went back to help. Both eventually managed to climb onto a raft with 5 other nurses on it. The raft drifted away from the wreckage, caught in strong currents, passing others during the night. Sister Ennis had taken responsibility for the children and would hold them as they slept. On the 2nd day, 2 of the nurses, Jeffrey and Isle Harper, volunteered to light the vessel, and they swam instead for the land. The raft, however, could not beat the current and continued to drift. Ennis was cradling 2 small children, a Chinese boy and an English girl. As the raft disappeared, it was never seen again. Caroline Ennis was 28 years old. Sister Caroline Ennis is commemorated on the Roll of Honour on my left, among 40,000 others from the Second World War. A photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is one but many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sister Caroline Mary Ennis, who gave her life for us, for our freedoms, and in hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.